On this week's program, Infinity War hits a billion. The video game industry is looking for millions. Millions? And what games would we like remade? All this and more. All this and more as we once again delve into the pop culture cosmos. The pop culture cosmos. The pop culture cosmos. And we're back for another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glass from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of our show once again. We can't do this without you, and we truly appreciate you tuning in each and every week. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He is the man, the myth, the legend behind Humanica Media. You gotta check out all their shows today on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and also their great videos on Humanica Media on YouTube. It's my good friend. It's Mr. Josh Peterson. What's going on, man?
Hey, just reeling in that last bit of weekend, you know what I mean? And talking some podcast stuff.
I hear you, my friend. And we've got a great show lined up for everyone today. We're going to be talking about the video game industry, where it's at, in sort of like a state of the video game industry type deal. Basically, for all intents and purposes, it is the state of the video game industry just before E3 2018 coming next month in June. Coming next month, we're going to be talking about that for all three of the major producers out there and major console makers and share our thoughts on that as we head into E3 2018. Plus, we're also going to be talking to, Josh has a great interview. We're going to be showing a little bit. We're going to be actually playing a little bit of that. It's with the independent band Young Ghosts. They are talking to Josh here in a little bit, and we're going to be playing a little bit of that here later in the broadcast. Also, as well, Josh and I are going to be sharing our thoughts on some of the games we'd like remade. And of course, Rob McCallum comes back into the middle of the Cosmic Crossfire. He is also going to be sharing his thoughts on the early success of Avengers Infinity War as well. Speaking of Avengers Infinity War, it just went over $1 billion faster than any other movie in just 11 days. I have actually seen the movie again, this time on an IMAX screen, and I'll tell you what, the theater there was packed still, even for its second weekend, which was down 56% from its amazing first weekend, but still did very well, over $100 million at the box office. The IMAX screen that I was at was filled with individuals just waiting to see this movie. People were still clapping and cheering and gasping and oohing and awing with each and every moment during the film. Some guy even actually clapped when some guy even clapped when, spoilers, Iron Man got got injured at the hands of Thanos there. So I ask you, Josh, it has reached a record pace of $1 billion in 11 days. You called it $2 billion was going to be something that you were targeting and that you thought it was going to be, it was going to exceed that. How are your thoughts on it now? Are you excited that it's still doing so well? And did you think it would actually do even better than you anticipated?
Yeah, it's weird with this one because I'm talking to people who really like the movie, and they're actually talking about how they want to go back and see it again, and that's not something that you see with a lot of movies. I mean, not just Marvel movies, but with any movie in general. So it's weird to hear people saying that they go
And
back.
like I said, I actually saw it for the second time on an IMAX theater, which was more expensive than the first time I saw it by a large margin. So I actually wanted to see it on a larger, better venue than I really did the first time.
Yeah. So I mean, that's another thing. Like the fact that people want to go back and experience this again goes to show you that it's not gonna slow down anytime soon, because you're just a small percentage of a larger percentage of people who are going to be going back to this movie. And there are some people who haven't even seen it yet. So, I imagine when I guess when the weekend, when people have time to go see it, or they're gonna go want to go see a movie, a lot of people are gonna go back and experience this movie again, maybe even 3 times. So it's not really at this moment, it's not really showing any signs of slowing down. And it makes me wonder, how is Infinity War going to affect the release of the Han Solo film?
Well, funny you should mention that because Solo is tracking at about a pace a little bit larger than Black Panther, which is actually a very impressive sign considering the fact that a lot of people have Solo, a Star Wars story, actually earmarked for doom and gloom, and thought it wouldn't even get close to $1 billion. If that's the case and people seem to like it and stand behind it, that could be a good sign for Solo. Deadpool 2, everybody seems to be having some great thoughts as well. I think it's just going to be the month of May is going to be a great time to go see a lot of good movies out there, and that could lead into a very strong June as well.
Yeah, I mean, because what Black Panther has been in theaters is still in theaters, and
Yes, it's actually still in the top 10.
yeah, and that just goes to show you that, like, Infinity War had such a huge impact on people, and it's right at the beginning of summer. So basically, this film has another, what, 3 months to kind of marinate with audiences. So I think it's not. I mean, we're at this point. I don't even think we're seeing half of what it's going to do in the overall long run. You said it hadn't been released in China yet, correct?
It gets released in China, I believe, this week, if memory serves. So, it in that case, it could lead to a much bigger reception. And you're right, it could go well over $2 billion if that's the case.
Right, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg here. So I mean, personally, I want to go see it again. So it just depends on how many people are like us who want to experience it again, experience it in IMAX, or even overseas who are going to be experiencing it for the first time, and how many of them are going to want to go see it again. So it's exciting to think about, but I don't think we're going to be able to see any like solid numbers until probably at least July to see like exactly what kind of damage this thing has done at the box office.
Well, it's definitely starting off on a great note, and that's definitely well, that's starting off on a great note, and it looks like Avengers: Infinity War is going to be a big success for Marvel and Disney, and that's good to see because, as you and I have talked about over the past few months, there has been some really slow times for the movie industry when it comes to the box office receipts. That is a good sign when people are going again out to go see these films, all led by Infinity War, over $1 billion in its first 11 days, and it looks like it's not slowing down very much at all. What are your thoughts on Infinity War? Did you like it like we do? It's one of my favorites. I believe it's also one of Josh's as well. What are your thoughts on the film? Let us know. PopCultureCosmos at yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Josh, E3 is coming around the corner. You're going to be there with Humanity Media and the guys from the Super BS Gamescast. Your thoughts on where the video game industry is at? I've got some hard numbers I want to shoot out, but I first want to hear your thoughts on where the video game industry is at here in 2018, just ahead of E3.
It's a very weird territory right now because you see there's a divide between people who want more multiplayer games and people who want more single player experiences. And it feels like less and less studios are willing to put the time and effort into the big single player experience. But then again, God of War came along and kind of changed everything. But it's also a huge big time for the indie games because a lot of people are able to get the satisfaction of a single player game through indie titles that you could pay significantly less money for and have 5 or 6 hours of playtime with. So it's a very weird landscape, and I have this feeling that the battle royale fad is going to be it's going to phase out here in the within the next couple of years. But as for E3, it's become E3. There's not a GDC and PAX are kind of where like the developers are making big announcements now, and you're seeing less and less at E3 because it's becoming more of a fan experience, and I know less and less press are going to E3 as of late. So I don't know where it's going. I think Nintendo kind of is setting the stage for a new type of press release for their Nintendo Directs, which they're I don't know if they're going to have a press. I'm sure they'll have some kind of press conference at E3, but they're smart doing their things like separate of all of that because they don't have to worry about putting on a big show or putting all this money into something that may or may not do anything for them. So I don't know, man. It's a weird landscape, and it's changing a lot, and a lot between indie and single player, multiplayer, stuff like that. A lot of studios are being closed up or enveloped by bigger companies like EA, and then EA is closing them up internally. It's a different landscape from what it was. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, you're right in the fact that it is a different landscape. Obviously, that starts with the battle royale, which is the hot fad going on right now. PUBG and especially Fortnite are making hand over fist in as far as dollars are concerned and generating so much income, not only for the PC and console market, but also for themselves. They've created mobile games, which now are at the top of the heap as far as downloads and people wanting to play, as far as free to play games are concerned. So they've done a great job of promoting both their games, PUBG and Fortnite, over not only, like I said, consoles and PCs, but also over the mobile systems as well. So that's a great start right there. Then you have the console makers. They all recently announced their financials as of the fiscal years that concluded at the end of March. All three are showing signs of nice profits. All three are showing signs of maybe they could do a little better. With Nintendo, obviously they're not at the point that they were at the height of the Wii. In fact, you're talking about something maybe a half to a little less than half as far as generating the type of profit that they once did with the Wii. But the Switch has still done very nicely for them and is generating a lot of more money for them at this time. With PlayStation, you're right. God of War has been a big hit. So big, it is the fastest selling PlayStation 4 exclusive title. They've done a great job promoting it, and it's selling like hotcakes. Yes, the PlayStation 4 is probably on its decline. It is now sitting at around 75 million. But even if that's the case, they are still winning almost every month on the US marketplace. This holiday, I think Nintendo Switch will still take over as far as sales there in the all important holiday season. But for right now, PlayStation 4 is still doing very strong there, even though, as I've said before, the ebb and tide and the slope as far as the actual sales are concerned maybe starting to go a little bit on the downside because we're 4 years into the life cycle. What can you expect at this point in time? I think it's actually seen extended life and will continue to see extended life much more so than previous generation consoles. Xbox is kind of like, well, for lack of a better term, the X factor. It is still generating some nice income for Microsoft, but seeing how it's sitting at number 3, it still needs to do things better, especially when it comes to making exclusive games that are exclusive to its console in order to try and generate more income and a higher profile. The Xbox One X, the higher definition unit that still costs right around $500. That I think has to come down in price, and if it does, you'll see an influx of sales to support it. But also comes down to the games where they need to go ahead and bring out more exclusives or in order to generate more income for the company. it did rise from the previous year. In fact, all three have risen anywhere from 15 to 20% from what they were doing in 2017. So that's a good sign for this fiscal year that, and like I said, ended as of March 31st. But in order to continue that growth, they need to all take steps, strong steps, to support the current systems that they're utilizing right now.
Yeah, no, I agree, especially if they want to see another generation of consoles arrive here by 2020, like everyone's predicting. They're going to have to kind of step up their game. And they kind of got away, they kind of got away with like Sony especially gets away with more than they should as far as like showing trailers years before the games come out. And we're all waiting patiently for Days Gone and like Final Fantasy 7 and stuff like that. So they kind of get away with more than they should, whereas everyone's super harsh on Microsoft because they have new Forza or whatever come out every year, but there's not a lot of original IP addresses hitting consoles. So there's room for improvement and there's opportunity, and no one people aren't giving up on consoles and these big single player experiences. So yeah, I think there's room for growth, and I'm curious to see what pops up at E3 this year and what makes its way out in the coming years. I know Nintendo is Switch has yet to announce any like big titles for the fall, and they usually have one or two. So I'm curious to see what those will end up being. But yeah, no, there's definitely room for the consoles to grow and become come back, as opposed to there's a lot of mobile gaming's kind of making a I don't want to say comeback, but it's getting big, and there's the Steam is another big thing. So if these consoles and the Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, they definitely have their work cut out for them if they want to survive in the future market.
And when it comes to the mobile platforms, that's somewhere Nintendo has said that they're finally going to start making a concerted effort and a focus on, which is a great sign and something that experts and people just have come to know the video game industry like you and I, we've been asking for them to do for years, and now they're finally paying attention to it. They're finally listening, and that they're actually going ahead and making a concerted effort to make a better presentation when it comes to the mobile marketplace. With PlayStation, it's just how much can they extend the PlayStation 4 so they don't have to bring a PlayStation 5 out real quickly. And also, can they really do anything when it comes to the VR market and their own PlayStation VR, which it is the leading seller among the VR market, but the VR market has not taken off like people thought it would. So I think there's something right there to that. And when it comes to Xbox, it's just at this point in time, they need to start thinking a little bit outside the box about what they can do to go ahead and promote the Xbox, because I've said it to you before, Josh, of all the consoles that are out there, I think the Xbox One has, especially the base unit, has the best value and offers the most for the money. But again, it's about Microsoft going ahead and presenting that product out to people.
Yeah, I mean, what, it's been 2 years, 2 or 3 years since we've seen a new Halo, but they have all the recipe for success that they need, but they're not doing it. They're not putting out new properties. They're and God bless them for working on backwards compatibility. They listen to their fans more than Sony does, but they're always being crucified by Sony fanboys and the media for not doing this or not doing that. But really, if they could have just one successful new property come out, or heck, bring back Fable, that would put them back on the map. They know what they need to do to survive, and even Phil Spencer has said that yeah, they need to put more focus into new properties. And if they were to do that and come out with something that people actually like, I'm not talking about like Recore, but I'm talking about something that's has a narrative in it. You can incorporate multiplayer, you can incorporate couch co-op or whatever it is. Those are the kind of games that make that have made Microsoft popular. You know, they're known, like the Xbox people have been known for having these games that you can play with your friends, 4-player games, couch co-op games. That's why people buy Xbox. And if they could go back to that formula that made them popular, I think that could put them back on the map for at least another 2 or 3 years.
I agree. And I think that they need to go ahead and take steps like that in order to ensure the longevity of the Xbox or whatever it is that they're going to produce in the future. What are your thoughts on the video game industry heading into E3? Do you think all three console makers are doing well, or is there one in particular that's doing better than the others? Is there one that's not meeting your expectations? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also, as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. Just got to let you know before we hit a break that that our shows are being streamed 7 days a week, 7 days a week on. Hold on. That our shows are being streamed 7 days a week on online radio, and that we deliver 2 brand new shows covering the latest in pop culture every Monday and Friday to Apple Podcasts or over 30 different podcast networks. Just subscribe to any one of them on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel to get extra content, or just check out the Pop Culture Cosmos Facebook page for our entire radio schedule and a list of those podcast networks. Josh, you got a great thing going on with Humanica Media. So tell us what's going on with your great experience known as Humanica Media.
Well, there's going to be a new episode of Top Apocalypse dropping in the morning, and you can catch a new Super BS Games cast that dropped on Thursday, and we'll have another something. I think a God of War review going up on Tuesday. But Charles, sorry, you can take that out of my voice. Totally cracked right there.
You're reaching that age of manhood.
I know. It was time finally. Late bloomer. Charles Smith has been dropping content like crazy on the Inside Sports podcast. So he dropped 3 new episodes today, or I dropped them. He just sent them to me. You can check that out. And also we have a show, whenever the Podcast Radio Network decides to come back online, we will have some stuff for you on there too.
Oh, that's awesome indeed. And it's going to be a great time every chance you get to check out one of the great shows on the Humanica Media Networks. Just go to Podbean, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your shows to check out all their great programming indeed. When we come back, Josh is going to be talking to the Young Ghosts about what's going on with their group. And then a little bit later on, the Cosmic Crossfire is coming up with Rob, also talking about Avengers Infinity War, how it's performed in its early days, and his thoughts on that. And then Josh and I will be coming back later in the program to talk our thoughts on some games that we think deserve some modern love and maybe a retrofit, a reimagining, or some type of deal where they're thought of once again and put in the public eye one more time. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back to close out the show. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. This is Gerald Glassford. Thank you so much for checking back in with us, keeping in tune with us, and sticking it out with us all the way through the program. Want to thank the Young Ghosts for joining Josh on his program. If you want to check out the entire program, it is available on the Topicocalypse channel on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, and so many other podcast outlets. Also want to thank Rob McCallum for stepping into the Cosmic Crossfire. Don't forget to support today on Kickstarter his outstanding project idea, Galaxy of Hope, an unauthorized Star Wars documentary with so much of the proceeds going to help the Children's Health Foundation. You can do it today. Go to Kickstarter.com and search out Galaxy Hope, pick a tier, and you're contributing to an awesome upcoming film project, and that definitely is something good, and that's definitely something worth doing. I can assure you, because he's done a lot of great documentaries already, and this is definitely right down that alley. Is he coming on your show pretty soon as well, or no?
No, I reached out to him and he was like, didn't know if he wanted to talk in the evening or something. So he's like, I'll get back to you, and he never did. So I assume no.
God, that guy. I love him though, but you know, sometimes it's because he's on Eastern time zone. I know it's how it has, and then he's got the kids and whatnot. So he likes. That's why we record in the morning. But hey, to each his own. Then, speaking of which, Josh, before we head on out, I know you wanted to take some time to share your thoughts on some games you were hoping that would be reimagined. And I know I was hoping to share some thoughts on some games that I thought needed some love as well. But I want to hear first your thoughts on some video games that you think need some modern love here in 2018 and given a brand new life to share with audiences and gamers that may not be aware that they even existed and may appreciate it if it's reimagined.
Yes, yes. So I was thinking about this, and like Sega's dropping their classic collection. Nintendo is supposed to be, having some old classics come out. And I just started thinking, like, what properties are out there that have been dark for a long time, but would be really fun to play on modern consoles? And the first thing that came to mind is, I'm a huge Streets of Rage fan. So why don't we have games like that anymore? We used to have even like games like Gauntlet, how you could crawl through dungeons with with three of your friends, and you just kind of you all shared lives, but it was fun. You very not often did you make it to the end, but it was still a fun game to play. And that's the same thing with Streets of Rage. You can kind of crawl through the streets and throw trash cans and fight people with your buddies. And when you ran out of lives or quarters, that was the end of the game. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, remember Gauntlet was reimagined, what, 3 years ago? And it did find the market that it was hoping to because they kind of made it too, I don't know, it just didn't click for whatever reason.
Yeah, and also you have to be careful with stuff like that too. I know that it was maybe it felt a little bit too modern, but there is an audience for it, I think. And especially like you have a game like the Simpsons arcade game. Remember that? They used to have those like Pizza Huts and the arcades and stuff, and you could it had four joysticks. You can sit there and play with your friends. You had Marge with a vacuum cleaner, and you just kind of went through Springfield fighting people. There's not a lot of games like that anymore. You don't have the side scrollers, or even not even just the side scrollers. Like it can be 3D, but you don't have games that you can play with your buddies like that anymore. It's all centered around like battle royale stuff, or like big massive multiplayer maps, and stuff like that. You don't have like Borderlands is really the last game that I can think that truly allowed you to have a good time with your buddies. There has not, like, Destiny is all completely almost completely multiplayer. There's not a lot. They need to bring games back that let you just hang out with your friends and play and have a good time. There's not a lot of games out there like that anymore. And, outside of that genre of like arcade style games, a property that I was thinking would be fun that we haven't seen in a long time is Croc. Remember that on the PlayStation?
I do. That was a very solid game when that came out.
Yeah, and I don't know like what happened to that. Again, we're going back to like mascot oriented games, but Croc was something that it hit with audiences, and then Croc 2 came out and people liked it. It was okay, but people didn't like it as much as the first Croc, but still like it found its audience and then it disappeared. So I don't know. I'd love to see Croc, and I'd love to see a return of like the arcade style games. But there's a lot of properties that if you look back on them, they could be cool on modern consoles, but people just don't want to take the time to reinvent them. Do you have any games that you'd like to see make a comeback?
I would, and it starts off with an original Xbox title, and I believe it also came out for the PC and PS2, if memory serves, or some other format as well. That was 13, or actually it was shown as a Roman numeral XIII, but it is 13. David Duchovny actually voiced the character. It's a great looking, at that point in time, cell shaded game. It was a mystery where you woke up, you got amnesia, and you don't understand what happened, and it looks like you shot the president, I think, as far as that's concerned, and you also, it was kind of like a mystery game. So you're figuring out what's going on, but there's people trying to hunt you down and kill you at the same time, and you got to figure out and unravel this mystery. And they tried to make actually a TV series out of it as well, but it didn't quite work out. But I would love to see that game reimagined. I think it definitely has a great quirk, and I think it would be a great single player adventure, although it had a really solid multiplayer as well. And you don't have to keep it in the cell shaded look, although it definitely worked for that point of time, because obviously the power of the actual console itself necessitated decisions such as that. But it definitely, but it looked like to me, but it was to me a very, very great experience. And I would like to see that rematch. And because we don't have a lot of single player games where you need where you're thrown in that type of scenario, and you're asked to think and make decisions and also unravel a mystery of that's really pertinent, because it's you going through the mystery and you're trying to figure out what's going on, because if you don't, you're going to go ahead and either get killed or be arrested for a crime you didn't actually commit.
Well, cell shading games are kind of coming back too, right? You see a lot of the indie games on like Nintendo Switch have kind of the shell cell shading going for them. Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, there's not a lot of games like God of War really is the first time that you've seen a game that's kind of enveloped you in a story like what you're talking about before. And for the most part, it's just like it's multiplayer and it's battle royale and stuff like that. You just don't get the experiences that you once had. And I'm hoping that eventually that type of game will make a comeback, and maybe God of War did set the precedent. And I'm not saying God of War really changed the landscape, but it did show that there is a desire for those games and they need to stop saying that there's not. And maybe through that we'll one day find a future where some of these games that we know and love and grew up with could have a place on modern consoles.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Are there any other games that you're thinking that you might want to see come back to life, or given a new life actually?
That's a good question. I'd love to see like Vector Man. I was always a huge fan of Vector Man. I don't know how fun that would be to kind of be more like a mix of like Bomberman and Metroid, I guess. But I like to see that. And there's some old racing games I used to like on Sega, like the Road Rash. But most of all, like I would really love to see a new Twisted Metal game come out, because those were always fun. I remember coming home from school and playing those with my buddies, and that was always a good time to me. I'd have to like honestly just go through a catalog, like a list of games I used to like, and get back to you on that. But yeah, there's a lot out there. Like Gex was cool, and Croc was cool, and there's a few others I'm sure that I'm just not thinking about right now. Like Pilot Wings another fun one. That was a Nintendo property. Crimson Skies, or the Armed and Dangerous. There's a lot of properties out there that were fun, but they've just gone dark. And you look at the modern gaming landscape, and there's no way that they would fit into this new world. But again, I'd like to see Cool Borders come back. Like that was always fun for me. But who knows when's the next time we're gonna see a game like that.
But there's also some games that kind of disappointed or just didn't cut the mustard at the time that they come out. But it was actually a novel and good idea that, if it had been done right, would have actually met an audience. One such game for me was Alpha Protocol. I really wanted that game to click. I was looking so forward to that game. In fact, I remember as we just started Game Source and just really started going to E3 and all that. And I actually, if you're watching this on our YouTube channel, you can actually see it up here in the right hand corner. And one of the games that I actually profiled on it was Alpha Protocol, because I was actually so excited to go ahead and get that game pre-ordered in advance. And sure enough, when I got the game, it stunk, and it was just really just a loser, and it just really just a bag full of poop, as far as a box full of poop as far as that's concerned. I will say that it had a novel idea as far as people were really getting into the Mass Effect scenario of making a game based on choices that you make during the course of the game. Going in this scenario, if you chose this way, you would go down this scenario. If you chose another direction, you would go down this scenario. And unfortunately, the quirky type characters, the story itself, just nothing seemed to mesh. The repetitive gameplay and the generic, just the generic bad guys that you were fighting were just didn't make any sense. It was a novel idea that somebody put on paper and just didn't come to execution. If somebody could get a hold of that property and go ahead and do something with it really substantial, I would just that would just really just to me it just would make a lot of sense because the spy genre has not been covered well in a long time. Probably the last, not necessarily GoldenEye 007, but I believe No One Lives Forever. I believe that was also a great spy game as well. And there's really not been any really good spy games that have come out in quite a spell. Even the Bond games that have made it to the Bond game iterations that have made it to consoles have not really been that good since 007. So I'd really like to see something brought out in that context, and a rebirth or a reimagining of Alpha Protocol could do the trick, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen many good spy games since like I guess Splinter Cell would be the last thing that I can equate to that. But it's weird how there was a time when a game like GoldenEye really hit. You know, we spent hours playing that on the Nintendo 64, and then all future James Bond iterations after that, including a remake of GoldenEye, didn't quite catch with audiences. And I always wondered why that was. Maybe was it because GoldenEye was just a moment in time, or was it because they tried to reinvent themselves at a time when you had all these other shooters out on the market, like Halo, you had your what else was out there? I don't know what else was out at the time, but yeah, it just maybe it just kind of got overlooked by what else people were playing.
Probably that's the case. At that time, Call of Duty was really getting into gear. Gears of War was really getting into gear as well. Quite a few others. Obviously, Battlefield was gearing up as well. Uh, I guess it stops at gearing. The Battlefield series, the Call of Duty series, Gears of War, they were all starting to really make a name for themselves. Shooters at that time were coming fast and plenty in the 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009 era. That period of time, you had tons of shooters coming out each and every month, all first person shooters, and all with most of them just doing the same repetitive type things. So I could see why that was the case. I know GoldenEye did try to make a reboot, and there was also other spy games in the genre. There's actually a couple of James Bond games in the series that are actually pretty good in its own right, but obviously GoldenEye 007 remains the best of the bunch, and I would like to see another stab. Sorry, pardon the pun. Stab at a spy series of some type, or a original story in that ilk, or even a reimagining, like I said, of something like Alpha Protocol or something else, be reimagined that will invigorate life in the spy genre for gamers once again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that would be cool. You know, spy games, dungeon crawlers. There's it seems like there's they were a moment in time, and that's just something that we don't see a lot of anymore. Right now, what we see the most of is like zombie games. We see a lot of battle royale games. We see a lot of games that are centered more on multiplayer than they are on single player. We don't see many single player games at all anymore, except you know your Final Fantasies, your God of Wars, and stuff like that. So you know, it all comes back around full circle. Like what you know, we're talking about the gaming landscape is changing, and the future is very uncertain right now. So we'll have to see. We'll have to just kind of wait and see what happens. Hopefully, the fans will kind of dictate where the gaming industry goes instead of having the gaming industry dictate where the gaming industry goes, because that could be bad for all of us.
Yes, it has proven in the past that was the case. And if we continue to not share our thoughts with the video game industry on how we want our gaming, it could continue down that pace. It could continue down that road. What are your thoughts on what games would you like reimagined? Is there a certain title, certain genre, certain story, certain concept you want reimagined, you want brought back to life, and you want popularized once again? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Stores on Facebook and Twitter as well. So Josh, it's been another great episode indeed. Any last thoughts on the way out, my friend?
No, I mean, we might have some news for you guys coming up soon, but I can't think of anything at the moment.
No worries. I'll tell you what, it's still going to be a packed episode we've got coming up on Friday. Obviously, we've got more great stuff for you on the way, including talking a little bit more about Deadpool 2. And obviously, the summer movie season is going to go, is coming up strong right now. We've got so much to talk about there. And then also, like we said, right around the corner is E3. So we got a lot to talk to you as we go along into the summer months. Definitely stick with us. Definitely stick with us right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos to get your fix on what the latest news and trends are in pop culture. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.